Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. If you would like to join the discussion, be sure to mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by the Adam Meakin, 10th Man Rising, Refracted Curvature, Eli, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all, and shout out to Godzilla37 for the super chat. Really appreciate the support.
Afternoon.
How's it going, all?
Hooray for the 5 to 10% enthusiasm level from you all. Hooray, we did a great long warm-up. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
That if the horizon, in Modus Tollens, if the horizon is Earth curve, refracted or not, then you won't be able to acquire an elevation angle from Earth. We do acquire elevation angles from Earth. Therefore, the horizon is not Earth curve, refracted or otherwise.
Beautiful. Any evidence of gas pressure without a container? Shout out to the price of Adam for sharing the show immediately. Really appreciate it because the enthusiasm level's so high. Obviously, we need a good audience for this. There's a lot of fundamentalist religious zealotry, and in that zealotry lies a fundamentalist religious zealot belief that the sky is a vacuum, and that vacuum is called space, outer space, the final frontier. Any evidence we can have the gas pressure that we all breathe without a container?
I haven't seen it demonstrated yet on a small scale.
So outer space is fake. Can't have gas pressure without a container. If the sky was a vacuum, then the gas we breathe would fill the space. Hey, Arwin.
No, the correct the correct terminology is the vacuum of space is fake.
Yeah, outer space. Space is just three-dimensional Euclidean length, breadth, and depth, and you can have space. Space is real. A space can be described, experienced, etc., etc. Now, the outer space sky vacuum is a different matter. But that's why outer space is fake.
They claim it's an open system, and to have gas pressure, you'd have to have a closed system.
Yep, it's as simple as that. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
What are you going to say or something?
Hold on, can 10th Man repeat that?
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you, Arwin.
Go ahead, Arwin, go ahead.
Yeah, space volume. What we object to is the infinite volume factor, which is claimed. That is what they claim, right? That it is infinite. They do take a number just to be able to calculate anything about it, but the claim is infinite. So they claim infinite volume, and that is absurd.
What about molten iron core?
Oh, that's perfectly fine. I mean, just P waves and X-rays.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Volcanoes, man. Where's the lava coming from?
According to current rhetoric, it's coming from tectonic activity, which pulls the molten iron or whatever it is that it produces in molten rock that is lava at the Ring of Fire, which is tectonically related, not molten iron core related. According to the rhetoric, I don't necessarily believe that.
Now,
Yeah,
how did we
the
how did we
molten iron
get the
core is
rhetoric?
never supposed to surface, right? It's just staying down there. The volcanoes are only because of the friction on the surface, supposedly.
At the
Okay,
plates.
how's that validated?
Well, it isn't, but I'm just saying that when people say, well, how have we got volcanoes? Well, tectonic activity is claimed to be the source of the volcanic activity, not the molten iron core. Not that the molten iron core is invalidated by the claim of volcanic or otherwise activity at the surface. Neither are related, but there's no evidence for the self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth beyond a backstory about Theia, some fledgling planet on an orbital collision course when presupposing the heliocentric model way back when time began. And then from that date to now, you end up with a collision that deposits a molten iron core, expanding the time period that they have for Earth with a molten iron core that's apparently oversized for it still to be warm. Blah, 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 blah. That's their backstory. But there's no evidence of the molten iron core itself, just that backstory.
Core, it never came to the surface again. It was just in there, and nothing about it ever came to the surface after that point.
Okay, what about when did we become rocks, though?
We were
That's a
always
different
rocks
That's
in
a
the-
different story. You're talking about Michelle Thaller's claim that we are cousins of rocks.
So molten iron core came first, and we're rocks cousins after that? I'm
No,
just trying to get the
no.
chronological order.
No. In the story, we, Earth itself, and everything that's developed from that in the heliocentric world, was born out of a long process of stars originally being born and dying very, very rapidly, but over time that slows down, and the process itself, when you have a star essentially go supernova, is the process of it forming and forging the base elements of life. And when that explosion occurs in supernova activity after the star's died, it blasts out all of those raw materials into space, which will eventually, through gravitational accretion, coalesce into a planet. And then through geological activity, you end up with the soup of life and the lightning and whatever soup of life they had creating life in their story. But the materials, the raw materials that are needed, have come from the heart of the dying star in their story. That's why we're cousins of rocks, according to Michelle Thaller.
Yeah, it's abiogenesis, which is the opposite of biogenesis, which is a natural law.
And what's the study of rocks? What's that called?
Geology, pressure and time.
Okay,
Yes, in essence.
so that's how we were formed, pressure and time? That's how I became? That sounds ridiculous to me.
What do you want?
Well,
It's
it is.
pseudoscience, isn't it?
Well, it is silly, but hopefully in time, they'll see the problem that they have between evolution and the molten iron core, and they'll incorporate it, and Theia will be the originating point of life, so that they don't have to explain how life was created on Earth. Then they can just kick the can and say, in some other place, it was created. Wasn't
it already
here,
is
so we
that.
don't have to explain it.
No, that's already incorporated. So it's theory is already a get around in the way you're describing in terms of its sustaining life on Earth. But for the fact in the story of Theia, we have this oversized molten iron core. Their heliocentric timeline doesn't permit life on this planet in their story. Why? Well, because it should have cooled down too much. Hence the necessity for another planet, Theia, to smash into Earth at a glancing blow to deposit its life-giving, oversized molten iron core. So in a very real sense, it is already part of that story.
Well, no, it's not, because I got a little bit of feedback. The rocks aren't alive. You know, like you need life to have life. Life only comes from life. That's why the chicken or the egg is a philosophical question.
No, I
Life
appreciate
only
that, but
comes
I'm
from
saying,
life.
but for the fact that you wouldn't have a prehistoric soup, I've forgotten what they call it, but that soup wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for the planet being not only in the Goldilocks zone, but also having an oversized molten iron core. So in other words, one of the prerequisites in their story to have the life come from the soup of someone remind me what the hell they call that prehistoric soup. Anyway, for that to occur, you must have had the oversized core. So, in other words, it's a sort of antecedent in their story.
Well, what I'm saying, though, is that is nonsense. They realize it's nonsense because they don't talk about it that much, rocks springing to life, except when Michelle Fowler makes crazy assertions. So why don't they just kick the can down the road to Thea, and life can come from somewhere else, and then they don't have to deal with how it started here. That can be their one free miracle.
That's also
You're
there
talking about
too.
ambient
Hold on.
exposure?
They have as well. That's also they can kick the can further down the road because while our story, the origin story of Wolverine, Earth as a sphere, is a story of being smashed into by Thea. Thea itself and all of its minerals, rocks, gold, platinum, whatever else is contained within Thea, and Earth for that matter, mostly iron, has come from the heart of the dying star. So if you're saying kick the can down the road, well, where did Thea come from? Well, Thea is a result of gravitational accretion. So gravitational accretion is the overall God, but part of that story of gravitational accretion involves the accretion of the gases into the star for it to then form the base elements to explode out and form Thea later on in a different series of gravitational accretion events and then smash into Earth.
Right. You're still saying abiogenesis, right? You're saying this is their story, abiogenesis. I'm giving them an out for biogenesis and not explaining abiogenesis.
But other than the point of conception of the universe, aka the Big Bang, they can kick the can all the way down the road to there, can't they? What's the problem? Why do you need to give them an out if you have to get quite far down the road kicking that can?
Well, right, but are you saying that life existed in the Big Bang?
No, but most people don't assess it based on the ontological primitives, nor will they get to kicking the can that far down the road. So although we have identified the ontological primitives at that point, most, if not all, people we encounter on a daily basis will not.
Well, no, I'm not even talking about the ontological primitive. I'm just talking about natural law. Biogenesis requires life to come from life.
Yeah, and as I say, you can kick that can all the way back to the Big Bang.
Yeah, but I'm giving them a method to do that by saying that life come from Thea instead of developing here on Earth.
Oh, I see. So you're pushing the story of the swamp that I can't remember the name of onto Thea. Well, I don't see that makes much difference, but fine.
No, not the story of the swamp, because that's nonsensical. That's abiogenesis, right?
Where's Adam?
With Thea...
Hold on, Neil.
Hold on. With Thea, they don't have to explain how life was formed. It was brought here.
There are other stories. I mean, other stories other than the Thea story are available.
Now I'm calling for Adam to get the name of the soup. I'm sick of hearing soup. What's the real...
Primordial.
What's the actual word?
Primordial soup. Primordial.
Thank you.
Right, but why not kill two birds with one stone, really? I mean, it's just economical.
Yeah, I get where you're going with it.
And that's about as much time as we've ever spent on the molten iron core.
I think it is. And without it being totally nonsensical, taking the mickey out of the concept in general, I mean, I think if you were a heliocentrist listening to this, you'd appreciate why yesterday we declared ourselves high priests of heliocentrism. I'd say we've got a pretty intricate understanding of their total nonsense. Wouldn't you all agree? It's because we're all ex-heliocentrists. Yeah. I was talking yesterday when Insanity sent us a super chat because he got a mention about the fact that I was quite heartbroken in some ways, having just transferred a load of sci-fi that's based on space onto my hard drives pre-Flat Earth. And, you know, while that might give this sense or impression of me having the loss and then the new Flat Earth and how invigorating that may be, that also lends to the idea that most of us have that similar journey. because we've all been educated the same way. We've all been given space toys when we were growing up and space Lego. For the most part, I don't know all your ages that well, but I'm pretty sure we're all similar in that regard. So therefore, because we've looked into it to the extent that we have, we've carried on beyond the point of finding out that it's not real anymore. And that's a little bit upsetting, but it means that you set up for the challenges that might come across your path as a flat earther with a damn good knowledge of heliocentrism to be in, you know, the position that you're in. As a flatty, you know, most of you will be ex-heliocentrists. Not just, you know, tacit, oh, I'm not really that interested. Oh, right, Earth's flat. Because those type of people just say, oh, well, what difference does it make? Because they've got no real emotional attachment to the heliocentric model when they come across the subject. They're the guy that I said, oh, well, what does it matter? It's like, well, if the heliocentric model didn't matter to you, then this probably won't either, because it's not an overarching part of your paradigm when you go about your day. But for some, quite a lot, it is.
Well, I got breaking news today. You can have a globe Earth and you don't have to be a heliocentrist. I didn't know that, but my son just told me.
There are other globe Earth models. The concave model's not heliocentric.
But the globe model is. I thought the globe model was heliocentrism.
No. The heliocentric model of a globe is a globe model in a heliocentric system. Heliocentric means Earth moving around the sun, in essence. That's like a solar system based.
So they're saying you can believe in a globe without believing that the Earth is moving around or something?
Yeah, I just gave you an example. Concave Earth is not heliocentric. With concave Earth, which is just the application of the Haversine formula from a flat plane and angle measurements thereof, you've got you projected in terms of the angle that's realistically used up to the inside of a concave Earth. Well, when they reify that and turn it into a model, you have the entire stars, planets, all of the stuff that's described in heliocentrism inside the ball. You're looking in at it from the outside, from the inside edge, stuck like you are on a gravitron, you know, the things that spin around, the whirly-whirl at the fair. It's like that. But you're looking in at the stars in their model. You're not heliocentric, not moving around the sun. That's part of the overall system of stars that's internal to the concave model.
Right, I got that. But if you believe that you're standing on a ball, you're a heliocentrist, I thought.
Check it out. Insanity is Sanity giving me £3 or £3.33. Now, every time you get a mention, I'll give you money. No, you don't have to, but I really appreciate the support. Insanity is Sanity. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, and no, that's not true either, Neil, because there was geocentrists who believe they're on a ball that's stationary and everything's spinning around them.
Yeah, but they're geocentrists. They have a name. I didn't know that a globe belief can be non-heliocentrist.
Yeah, they can be geocentrists.
The guy who talks about the telescope example with the water in it, is it Michael Bowden, I believe? It's going back a long way. He's a geocentrist. You know what that is? It was just mentioned to you by John a second ago.
Yeah, it's the Earth that doesn't move. I understand that.
Right.
Talking about somebody who believes the globe.
How can you be?
The globe is the globe.
If you're on a globe that doesn't move, how can you be moving around the sun? That's heliocentric, isn't it?
Yes.
There's lots of globe models, Neil, that aren't necessarily the same as the Western world's view that we move around the sun.
You're not listening to me. Forget it.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Well, hold on a second. Neil, are you saying that you can't be heliocentric without the globe? I would agree.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, you can't have a flat Earth moving around the sun, if that's what you're implying. But any evidence?
NASA wants to change. NASA wants to change the distance to the sun once again. Was that the eclipse in 2017 didn't correspond to the math? There was a 5-hour eclipse in America that didn't match with the globe maths. Obviously, everything is being brushed under the rug. But they still want to change the distance to the sun once again.
Well, they can. It's just done with a scaling value from Kepler's third law. So he takes orbital assumptions to the next level, but doesn't give you anything that can give you the actual distance. You have to insert it into the scale values that he offers to get the distances. And that required, up until now, the Christian Huygens assumption that Venus is the same size as Earth, hence the terminology in current understanding when describing Venus as Earth's twin. But that's just an assumption that gives you the scaling values to derive 93 million miles as the distance currently. But it's changed multiple times. Jeranism's done a very good job in the past of pointing out all the different changes, the sliding scale that they've applied to the sun over the years. But yeah, it's just a scale that they can change arbitrarily. And who's going to argue, right? The distances are set out in a sky vacuum that you're never going to ever visit. So, you know, in many ways, it's very 1984 in that respect. Well, they can be whatever distance we like.
Well, in that case, if they need Venus to be Earth's twin within that scaling value, and they're changing the size of one of the objects within the scaling value, would Venus change its size relative to the sun?
Yes, no, that's a byproduct. It's the one follows the other. So Christian Huygens assumes the size of Venus to be the same radial value as Earth, when assuming Earth has a radial value, which can only be derived from a flat plane. Well, yes, if you're going to change the scale of anything, let's say you increase the distance to the sun, that changes all of it in terms of everything must scale up. So, yeah, Venus wouldn't be Earth's twin anymore. It would be much bigger and further away.
So we'd have a bigger Earth. It would be...
No, that won't change. That can't change.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Then Venus can't be Earth's twin anymore.
No, it can't be Earth's twin anymore. But after assuming that Venus has the same radius as Earth, it then gets called Earth's twin. But no, it wouldn't be Earth's twin anymore. It would be a different size.
So the scaling values would go out the window at that point, wouldn't they?
The scaling values would, but the scale itself, Kepler's third law, can be applied to anything. You just need to assume either a distance or a size of something. In this case, Venus.
Well, I'm just like, if we're assuming the distance of the sun based on Venus being the same size as the globe that exists only in their minds, right? And we change the distance to the sun, therefore changing its size, then Venus must change size in that scaling value, which would change Earth's size within that scaling value.
No, you can't change Earth's size.
So I think they're pretty locked in with that 93 million.
No, I don't think so. I think you can still change the scale. You don't, just because coincidentally Venus has the same radius value ascribed to it, doesn't mean that it's tied to Earth's radius value when you slide the scale up or down. So Earth would have still have had to have had a 3959 mile radius, regardless of when they changed the scale in the past. It still has to match up with those elevation angle measurements. It will always be 3959 for Earth. That cannot change.
I got you. The scale actually has nothing to do with the size of Earth, but the interjection of Venus's size.
Precisely.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, but your overriding point is still true, though, which is to say that the assertion of Venus being Earth's twin goes out the window if you change the scaling value. That's absolutely true. Any scientific evidence of gravity, as we're talking about gravitational accretion and Theia forming after gravitational accretion has occurred in the gases that have formed the stars, which have formed the gold and all the rest of it and blasted it out so we can have it coursing through our veins because we're cousins of rocks?
Which gravity?
Gravitational accretion would be Einsteinian in this example.
Well, there's no scientific evidence of either of them, correct?
No, none. It's not science. It's maths.
Math is not reality, though.
No, in this case, there's a completely made-up extra dimension. The fourth dimension. Dun, dun, dun. Space-time. which is the thing that actually bends. That's the gravity. You know, the gravity exists in a made-up dimension that doesn't exist. It's bending space-time. Yeah, that's the fourth dimensional bending of a concept known as time, which you can't bend or dilate. But you can in the maths.
That's almost like a counter space, isn't it?
Yeah, the two run very, very much parallel with one another.
What a coincidence.
Unmanifested, I must say. It's just an equation, though.
Yeah, but just an equation means that there's, unless you're quantifying or measuring something in physical reality, describing something mathematically in a conceptual medium in a pseudo four-space geometry in no way correlates or relates in any way to anything in physical reality. Like me calculating how much magical pixie dust unicorns eat. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Can you define?
Colloquially, a hypothesis?
When you say colloquially, there is no colloquial use of hypothesis in those fields. We're talking scientifically, obviously. These are scientific fields as far as they're concerned, are they not?
For the listeners, can you define what a scientific hypothesis must be first?
Scientific hypothesis establishes a cause and effect relationship with an independent variable and a dependent variable. Your dependent variable is the thing you're studying, i.e. the observed effect, and your independent variable is your presumed cause yet to be validated. That's it. That's
In that case, no. There is no proof.
No, it's not like we're even asking for an experiment here. I mean, we're asking for a valid hypothesis. So not the experiment. You don't have to put it through the method. Just form a hypothesis for any of those fields, and there isn't any. Mad, isn't it?
So when they look at a star through a telescope and cannot do a scientific hypothesis, what then are they doing when they come out with their claims?
Observe and declare. Making stuff up, just making stories up. It's Jack and Ori.
That sounds like the church group. Name it and claim it, right?
You like? The point being, they're not doing science, and we're asking for science from those fields specifically. They're the ones telling you the world's a sphere, so let's see your science. It says science above your door. Let's have it then. Let's see a valid hypothesis.
So when someone observes and declares, they could only do that if they had something prior to that that either was proven and they observe and declare from that, or something prior to that that was another observe and declare, and they're going off of another observe and declare until you go back far enough to say, what did you ever have objectively real that went through the scientific method that had a hypothesis? Do they have anything?
No, they have to embrace the fiction.
Now they're saying we're only science, that we use science, and that's it.
Well, science in the broader term is knowledge, but the scientific method is a prescribed method for cause and effect. So if they're not answering a cause and effect question, they're not doing scientific method, nor should we hold them to it. But if they just want to observe and declare and say, well, in the broader term, science is knowledge, so this is my knowledge, so let me observe and declare. Okay, fine. What are you basing that on? Oh, another observe and declare.
That's why we're in the mess that we're in.
Any evidence of the R value? That's Earth radius, discussed earlier at 3959 miles. Also,
well, there would be curvature somewhere, wouldn't there be?
Also, Venus's radius, apparently.
Antipodal.
John, go ahead, John.
The antipodal star rotation. That's proof of that Earth must have a radius.
Can you tell me through that?
No, I need a flat plane for it. I'm just trying to sound confident.
If you hadn't listened to yesterday's show, hopefully John will play along and explain how the assertion of antipodal star rotation, for example, is actually a description that takes place in a very specific model known as the celestial sphere model. And the celestial sphere model is essentially a flat plane with a hemispherical observation of the stars above your position. Now, in order to turn that hemispherical observation into what you on the globe think is antipodal positioning, you essentially have to sandwich two flat planes upon each other so that you can acquire elevation angles from either. But that is essentially the celestial sphere model with two flat planes at the centre of it. And unless I haven't covered anything, can you? I don't think there's anything left to elaborate on, but feel free to comment, John, as it's you that's basically brought this to a head.
No, that was well done. That's pretty much it. The idea of antipodal star rotation requires a flat Earth.
Isn't that epic? Moving on from the R value, any evidence you can acquire an elevation angle, what we were just describing on the celestial sphere, or hemisphere with a flat plane and another hemisphere with a flat plane sandwiched underneath it in order to acquire elevation angles from either to assert antipodal star rotation. Any evidence you can acquire that angle from a curved baseline in violation of that celestial sphere model we just described. I ruined that, didn't I? Because I took away all avenues from everybody. It's my own fault. The silence is my fault, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I think it's interesting that in the comments, people will say things like they never address antipodal star rotation, because it has their presumption of being antipode to yourself, right? But we just did. So I'm waiting on the counter argument to that.
I don't know, the last counter-argument to something similar, because it's along the similar veins to, obviously you can't acquire elevation angle measurements unless you've got a flat plane to acquire them from. Last time, they just said, look, if we take these flat Earth elevation angle measurements and ignore the fact that we took them off a flat plane and challenge you to show how they'd work on a flat plane after we've measured them on a flat plane, maybe they'll just do the same with antipodal star positioning. If we look at these stars, measure angles to them and deal with them in any way that will always require a flat plane to do it, and we ignore that fact and then assert that we're antipode on a sphere, then I can make my example without necessarily conceding that I've had to acquire the information from flat plane in the first place and apply it in a flat plane model, aka the celestial sphere, in the first place. So they'll just want to dance past it in the same way they did with the elevation angle measurement in the first place, I predict.
Well, I did that one just for the trolls because I've seen that comment seems to be happening a lot. That it's funny how these flat earthers never address two celestial poles. So there you go, guys. We addressed it.
I would take heed if I was you and you're an anti-flat earther looking to come and troll us. Try to bear in mind that since maybe the mid part of 2021, maybe the start of 2022, we've started to appreciate that almost every claim made by a sphere Earth has its origins in a flat Earth. Ergo, when you start barking at us as you've done in the past, things like, how do you explain celestial poles on a flat Earth? There's a good chance that we'll take that comment and show you how your original claim and misapprehension of a sphere actually has its heart and origins in a flat Earth. So be careful what you sow, because you might be reaping a flat Earth afterwards. I'm pretty sure that concludes the housekeeping. I think we covered all of them.
You didn't get axial rotation.
Ah, damn. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
I guess star movement's out the window now.
Well, you'll need a flat plane for that. I mean, it was
This
always...
where Neil usually goes, oh dear.
Oh, sorry, say again, I rumpused you.
I just said this would be the point where Neil usually says, oh dear.
Oh dear.
It was always an affirming the consequent to begin with. So if I assume Earth is a sphere, then when I travel to the southern hemisphere, I will observe antipodal positioning when I look up. And I look up and observe the stars rotating, therefore antipodal positioning. So it's just if P, then QQ, therefore P. But this is much better. I'd much rather rub it in their face. What's that you say? Antipodal observations. Au contraire. That's a derivation of the celestial sphere model. But in order to make the assertion, you had to take your observer view with angles acquirable and sandwich underneath another flat plane to complete the sphere from the two hemispherical viewpoints. Well, that's still two flat planes sandwiched on top of each other. It's not a sphere Earth. There's no curve involved. It couldn't possibly be. It would violate the celestial sphere model. Oh, what a day. What a lovely, lovely day.
It's like with the dip angle to the horizon being claimed to be Earth curve when it's actually a differential between two flat planes, you know, and they accept that in their explanation when they draw out sea level, you know.
Or their claim of refraction when the maths that's been derived in orthographic view from the elevation angle measurements taken from a flat plane requires that the pure geometry of a sphere Earth be translated into the mapping, meaning that there's an essential requirement for them to exclude all refraction because the maps don't match the maths. Even when applying the Haversine formula. I really like Brian's current example because it's cutting edge, right? It's right up there. So they've managed to weasel in an example where they've acquired their flat Earth angle measurements and are putting challenges to us. And Brian turns around and says, "Nah, you guys need refraction. It's a day-to-day, everyday fact of life on a globe, but the maths have to match 1 degree every 60 nautical miles. So if you include refraction, it knocks it all out. So you have to assert your geometric horizon." How's it working out for you, Rufy? Yeah, good. Because otherwise the maths don't match up with the maps. They still don't match because if you've got chord lines running through sphere Earths when you're taking elevation angles, it increases the distance based on a hump that would be included and knocks the measurements out that way. So Brian's got them running scared currently because he's pulling apart at the minutiae level how they cannot use anything other than their purest geometry, which they relinquished back in 2020 when they backed refraction. But refraction? Oh, really? Well, that screws every bit of a claim to be navigating on a sphere ever, doesn't it?
Yeah, if you're going to beg the question and go down that road after the elevation angle that required a flat plane and the flat Earth model that you apply that angle in, and the idea that a circle can have a curved radius, you know, if you let them have all that, Brian's got them gutted. Even then, you know, it's like,
John, look at the lineup, though. QE, Nathan, Brian, you, 10th man. It'd be foolish to come up against this team.
But that's why I describe Brian as like a pit bull that's chained up behind the, you know, behind the main guest house. So that when the savages get out, you know, we're in there torturing them, and they get out the front door and run around the house trying to get away from us. There's Brian waiting. And them running around the house is metaphorically the equivalent of right, we've got these flat Earth angles. Shh, don't mention 90. Don't talk about the angle acquisition. Right, let's present them with elevation angle measurements that we've already pre-acquired and set them a challenge, right? And then we'll not mention the fact that we've got a differential between two flat planes when we're talking about the dip correction. We'll not mention the fact that we're utilising the geometric horizon, right? And then they sprint out of the building because we've nailed them on all of the above points. And Brian gets them, breaks the chain and gets them by the ankles. He's like, hello, weren't you supposed to be applying refraction? Well, you can't. Doesn't match any of the mapping if you do. They're just screwed. They're screwed so many different ways. It's brilliant. We've got every single angle covered in this regard. No pun intended.
And then I can't forget Adam Meakin when they try to come with math. You got the Adam Meakin waiting in the corner.
What are you doing at the moment, Neil? Bigging everyone up. Why are you blowing smoke up everyone's ass?
I'm just saying, like I was thinking like a sporting event, like you compare teams. And you got to be nuts to come up against this lineup. It's murder's row.
If you say so. I see it as an educational channel. Educating your average Joe on how their assumed globe is actually a flat plane. And how that conversion's being done is what's disseminated currently from this show, which I really appreciate. It's a good day to be a flat earther. If you've come here and you knew, you'd be like, wow, this is really on the cutting edge of this how we were deceived into being on a ball. Because it's a lot of the first questions people ask when they get here, isn't it, Neil? Well, how could this have happened? Well, that's what you're finding out now. For me, it's 7 years of looking into the subject to get you to the point where you can say, this is how the Earth that is flat is still measured as flat and then converted to a globe.
That's great. I'm talking about normal people that come in, that's great. They're going to get educated. But you have these anti-flat earthers that come in, and that's where the lineup comes in. Murderous row.
Yeah, you just want to see an anti-flat earther getting a whooping, I can tell, Neil. That's really where you're trying to lead this, isn't it?
Not that. You got ether believers who say they're flat earthers. They come in too and get smacked all over the place and then start yelling at you.
Just because they've looked for the next guru to give them some answers doesn't mean they're not flat earthers, as you just implied.
Yeah, people are desperate for answers when the ones that they have are taken away from them. It's hard to fault them for that.
Exactly. Have some empathy, Neil. Hey, Brian. We were just talking about you.
Sorry. Until you could name the 5 constituent parts of a magnet, then you don't know what you're talking about.
Hey, Nathan. Hey, everyone. The 5 constituent parts of a magnet.
Yeah, that was one of the questions they threw at Nathan the other day.
The mechanical parts of a magnet is what.
Whatever.
That's terrible. Even the ballers wouldn't even say that.
It's farcical. I'll use Brian's word. It's farcical.
So yeah, we gave you a little preamble before you got here, Brian, in regards to your right in the thick of it, ground level in the trenches, arguing with these tossers who've already begged the question. They've already ignored the differential between two flat planes to get a dip angle, and they're on to using what they must use, the pure geometry of Earth converted via Haversine, because if they don't, i.e. they apply refraction, it doesn't match anymore.
Yeah, it can't work with refraction because that means they're taking angles. If they're taking any angles, then regardless of how they're saying they're doing it, they're using a refracted horizon. Even if they're using a tangent plane, it's going to be a completely different angle to what we see in reality. Well,
yes.
Sorry, to what they have to get with their globe, I should say.
Yeah, so they have to use the geometry, which is what we said in 2020. We're like, why are you saying refraction when your whole claim is based on this geometric assertion of an Earth curve edge? Why would you do that? You're destroying your own model. And now that's them sowing those seeds of refraction and having to reap them now when they're like, no, yeah, we appreciate that the maths has to match up with the maps when we take these angles from a flat plane. Don't mention that. Well, no, you've just told us for 2 straight years that it's all refracted always, without exception. What is it, no atmo day? Oh, well, when we're doing maps, it is. How's a geometric horizon working out, Rufy? Good, good? Nah, not at all. You haven't got one anymore. We wouldn't expect to see it, says AB Science. Nobody's expecting to see it, says Planner Walk. Nobody's claiming the horizon's Earth curve, says Tim Osman. Unless you're Ruhif and you need it because you're doing maps. And then you ignored the fact that you've got your angles from a flat plane. It's all very embarrassing for anti-flat earthers at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, you get your correct latitude, not an incorrect one, not one you have to adjust for. Your correct latitude at sea with a marine sextant via Polaris and the sea horizon. That's the horizon they're claiming is refracted. That means that their whole, not just like, they don't understand. That means all and every bit of the heliocentric model is over at that point. Because it all started and ends, it all starts and ends with the observations to Polaris. As that's the back engineering of the radius for them. So if you're claiming that that horizon is refracted, then you don't have a radius, you don't have a globe, you don't have a heliocentric model. It's all over.
Did you guys not hear us telling you that in 2020, by the way? Yeah, if you don't have a geometric horizon, as in the one that's lining up with all of the claims in your maths, then you haven't got a claim anymore. Now, you continued for 2 straight years to dig that hole as deep as it could possibly go by barking refraction at us. Yeah, that's a big problem. You know, just go and ask Ruhif if that's a problem. It is. Now, at the time, you thought it was great. Refraction, you haven't taken the refraction into consideration. Our claim of a geometric Earth curve edge is a straw man, we were told. I mean, do you guys not feel a bit stupid now? You should. It's a shame there's only 90 people watching, or 91. I don't know what's happened to the viewing figures. They're all over the place at the moment. Yesterday we were doing really well, and I was commending everybody for sharing the show. Today, you haven't even hit 100 viewers. It's amazing. All over the shop. Either way, please share the show. This is the cutting edge of how any globe claim required a flat Earth to make it. Should be in front of 5,000 people, as far as I'm concerned. Then again, I'm very grateful we're almost at 100, even though that's not the normal figures. Thank you very much, all the same, to people who shared. Nathan. Hold on, Neil. Thank you very much to all of you who did share the show. Please share the show if you haven't done so already. The reason we're getting close to 100 people watching is because you've shared, so I do still appreciate it, even though I'm speaking a little bit negatively.
I said, now you're talking. I usually say, it should be thousands listening, millions listening.
It
Don't
should
forget
be.
to hit the like button, guys, so you get the notifications.
I'd have to do a lot less GoFundMe campaigns and so forth. Not that I'm financially motivated in any way. Oh, by the way, smash the super chat if you want to support this channel. It is nice, though. I like being sincere when I say that we're on the cutting edge. Shout out to Mike808 for hitting the super chat. Really appreciate it. Because we are. That is sincere when I say that we're on the cutting edge of this stuff. As far as declaring that we are as high as the heliocentric priests and our understanding the derivation of the flat plane to a globe, that's what you'd need to have if you're a heliocentric priest, because you're trying to disseminate that conversion to the rest of the disciples of your heliocentric worldview. Hey, QE.
Well, hey, QE. Where else would you hear that? What other show in the world would you be able to hear right now that the use of 7/6R will cause their degrees to your 60 nautical miles per degree to work out at 80.5 statute miles, not 69, like in reality? There's no other show you're going to hear that on. This is the only show that's going to cover that topic.
I mean, that is very cutting edge. There very, very well be even, well-grounded flat earthers who've been here a while that don't follow that, because it took a while for it to sink in for me. I'm not just saying I relate to everybody who's watching, but I'm just saying this is cutting edge stuff, and sometimes it does take a little while for people to appreciate what you're disseminating, because you'd have to be in the cutting edge of the argument to hear an anti-flat earther declare their geometric horizon, to catch that they haven't got one anymore, to point out that if used correctly with their refraction, it works out to 80 what? That was a new bit of data.
80.5.
80.5 rather than 69. So when you convert it to
Yeah.
statute miles, because the degrees doesn't match up with the land miles, but we'll get into that at a different time, I presume. It works out instead of 60 miles per degree, or 60 nautical miles.
69 statute.
Turns into 69 statuette. But hold on, I'm just summarising it for my own benefit, actually. So instead of 69 statuette, you end up at 82, correct?
80.5. But just say 80.5. Just whatever's make it easiest. Instead of 70 statute miles, you end up with 80 statute miles, just to round it off.
Right.
That's only if it's 7/6R. If it's any more than 7, or if they're claiming any more than 7/6R, like with the Black Swan, where their radius is 250,000 statute miles, then it's going to be a lot more than 80.5.
That can't be.
Shout out to Goldie McKinnon, says PayPal is better. Yeah, it is better because they don't take 30% of YouTube money, which YouTube does. Big love from South Florida. Really appreciate the support, Goldie McKinnon. Yes, but we must appease our YouTube overlords, so I still promote the super chat. And I genuinely like the fact that I can shout out the person live when they're promoting me, and don't begrudge the 30% that YouTube get for the fact that I can actually say thank you to you, Goldie. So thank you. I really appreciate the support. As much as I
Goldie is
ask
ace.
you to smash the super chat. Go ahead. Sorry, mumbling to myself.
Can you play audio clips?
I can. I am
Go
set
to
up
Ball
to do so.
Busters, and by the way, make sure you check your personal messages.
Do I need to do that before I play the clip?
No, you don't.
Okay. Would you like it right now?
Yeah, it's short. It's only a few seconds.
No, not show the crops. Why is it every time we get to what's ether, we get shown crops growing? It's not ether.
I just asked you a simple question, Nathan. What are all the mechanical parts of a magnet?
What the hell did you just say?
What are all the mechanical parts of a magnet?
You unlock this door with the key of
retardation.
Beyond it is another dimension. You're moving into a land of
bullshittery.
You've just crossed over into.
What are all the mechanical parts of a magnet?
Numpty zone.
Very good. Well worth playing.
I brought that up today. That was
You
it.
did. I didn't remember it. I've got to be honest.
I made a mistake. I said constituent parts. Excuse me.
Is John not in Ballbusters already?
Nope.
Why the hell not? I hope that answers your
That's what I
question.
said.
He is in Ballbusters.
Apparently not. I thought he was. Maybe I should take the blame for this.
Morning, fellas.
Hey, Chocolate.
I'm the only non-member in Ballbusters.
Hey, we might hit 100 people. That's probably because Chocolate's got here.
Oh,
Go on,
really?
Smash that share button. Come on, we can get to 100 people. We can keep that momentum going. So it's been a good day, Chocolate. We've been on the cutting edge of describing how the conversion from a flat plane to a globe Earth, and indeed covering concave Earth. We've covered geocentrism. You name it, man. This has been a really cracking show. It's just a shame there's very few people watching it.
Well, when you bring out the chocolate, most people show up then.
You've seen him. He's an absolute Adonis.
Oh, my God.
You want some slides to go with the topic of the show?
Did you hear that? That's an outrage. He's like, oh, my God, so modest.
Chocolate raises the bar.
Boom.
Boom, boom.
Let's change the topic.
You want to show some visuals for the topic for today?
Yeah, sure. As we've got 3 minutes left.
Yeah, it's a master.
Okay, ready when you are.
I was going to say my magnet mechanism is broken.
This is not a magnet repair shop. Take it elsewhere.
Well, I'll fix it. Just get ready to listen to the next attraction here. So here we got an angle. Two straight lines meeting at a common point called the vertex. The next slide will show that that angle just happens to be 45 degrees. A, B, and C, and then you got the angle. The next slide shows how a baseline is necessary for an angle. And this one shows 45, 45, 45, 45. The green is 90. That's your zenith, the highest point. The next slide shows a protractor, and it's easy to follow here. The angle ACT is an acute angle since it's between 0 and 90 degrees. Pretty easy to follow, pretty obvious. You can't get an angle without a baseline that's straight, horizontal, flat. No curved lines here. And then we got the last slide, what they did. And refractive curvature talked about this. So he's still here. I'll pass it on to him, or I'll pass it on to Nathan to comment.
Still there, John?
You go ahead. I got my hands full.
Well, we've got. I don't like this diagram. So we've got. I'm sure you've got a better diagram than this.
What? It's a protractor. One up, one upside down.
Okay. So you've got the globe Earth as a grey area that's partially obscured by the two different hemispheres we were describing earlier. But it's got a projection of the map up onto the globe Earth surface without a celestial sphere around it, to make the example clear. I don't know what to do with this.
I know what to do with it. This is without the celestial sphere, and we just discussed what angles were. And the only way you get an angle is from the center of a presupposed sphere, where you have to cut it in half, have an equatorial plane. None of their angle measurements in their nautical almanacs come from the surface that's curved. All the measurements are as to be taken as true altitude from the center of the Earth. Right now, John brought to our attention, when you cut this sphere in half, that center of the Earth gives you the baseline straight to get angles from. The angles are never measured and can never be measured from a curved baseline. So in fact, the center is your Earth. We are living on a flat plane, and they've just stuck in the middle and put two protractors, one upside down, and it goes 0 to minus 90, and one upwards, 0 to plus 90. Now, you on one that shows the celestial sphere, Nathan? Is that what you're asking for?
Oh, that would be great to end on. Yes, please.
All right. See if I can find one real quick.
My objection to this is it doesn't show the origin. Yes, it shows it cut in half, and yes, it shows it like a protractor. But to your average normie, they just look at this image and go, well, I'm just standing, round about here on the top of this curved surface. What's the issue? It's like, well, if you didn't pay attention to the last 3 or 4 minutes of description, then this won't immediately pop out off the page as being the protractor, and the grey bit being the surface that you can only get the angle from, even though it was literally explained only 30 seconds earlier.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You're the one who wanted it.
Well, it's just this is a much better depiction. So I can flip between the two and say, look, the angle's only ever going to come from the centre of this section. The reason it's shown in half is because you've got one section giving you an angle. That's the flat plane that will give you these angles that were shown in the previous presentation. But then you can project that up to a redundant central section sphere with the same grey area cut through the middle of it, that you're going to be getting the angles out to the stars projected at an infinite distance onto the celestial sphere, which is this. So the globe, when you consider that the angle is going to be coming from the centre of it, is made redundant in this diagram. So then when we cut to the hemisphere of the arc of the heavens that you'd get in a perspective view, when you cut the globe in half, and it's almost showing it with this diagram, this isn't bad, it shows that the angle goes to the centre. Well, that means that this is redundant. What you're actually measuring is an angle from a position to the star off a flat baseline. well, that makes this section in the middle, called the globe, redundant. It's just projected in via a have-assigned formula that took this angle that goes to the centre and projected up the map that you were standing on flat up to the concave position in the central part of this globe. Completely redundant. All you're doing is measuring an angle. So where's the angle residing? Here.
They had to do that.
Redundant sounds like the globe in an action.
Yeah, but they had to do that because you can't get an elevation angle from a curved baseline. They had to do what they did.
Precisely. With that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming Streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. Did we hit 100 people? Yay, 100 people watching. With that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming Streams, stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Another massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!